Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Living Made Easier Arthritis Hacks for At-Home webinar. My name is Rebecca Gillett, and I'm an occupational therapist and the Director of Content Strategy and Planning at the Arthritis Foundation. I'm also an arthritis patient. I have rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis, and actually my diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis is what launched me into going back to school to become an OT, to learn life hacks like these to help other people. So glad you could join me tonight. I have been living with arthritis for about over 20 years, and I have several different forms of arthritis. So this is going to be a great evening of sharing some tips, tricks, and basically show and tell of some things that might be able to help you make meal prep and cooking easier. Our guest expert and I are going to share various tips and techniques and tools to help make cooking, meal prep, and cleanup easier and maybe less painful. Today, we'll be focused on all things cooking and meal prep. So if we can move to the next slide. Also, I am the host of our podcast, Live Yes with Arthritis podcast. So while we are talking about meal prep and cooking, we aren't really talking about healthy eating itself, diet and nutrition. You can tune into the podcast for more information on that. We have several episodes related to nutrition and arthritis, and we have a couple webinars on our website, as well as many other resources on our website. But we have done some webinars in the past, and you can find those on our website as well that focus on different areas of diet and nutrition. So today, like I said, all things cooking and meal prep are what we're focused on, and we'll have several resources in the end that we'll share with you to find out more information on healthy eating itself. We are going to go over some housekeeping notes. If you can go to the next slide. We'll talk about, before we get started, we're going to have you all muted. So you're all muted right now for this event. But any questions that you might have, if you toggle down to the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button that you can press and enter in your question there. We'll reserve time to answer your questions at the end of our presentation. There will be a Q&A. And then we will also try to intersperse some of the questions you might post in there as we're doing our presentation. I know many of you who registered might have also submitted some questions that you have. So just let us know if there's anything you have questions about while we're doing a presentation. We did reserve an hour and 15 minutes for this webinar, but please know that if we may go over, not to worry. If you need to hop off, this full webinar will be available on our website. The recording will be available, and we'll probably even have some of this material posted on our social channels. So another thing to take note of is we do have a longitudinal study that we're doing, or you can tell us what your experience is like with living with arthritis, and that's our Insights program. You can find more information at arthritis.org/insights. It's surveys like that and hearing from patients in our Insights program that help us develop educational programs like these. Another reminder is that at the end of in a couple of days, you'll get an email with a post-event survey. Tell us what you think and provide any feedback about this webinar and maybe some suggestions for future topics. All right, let's get started. Our next slide, we will introduce our speaker. And if you caught us earlier this year, Jeanine Beasley joined me for a webinar about living made easier in the home. She's back again by popular demand. Jeanine Beasley is a professor at Grand Valley State University's Occupational Science and Therapy Department. She's the coordinator of the Occupational Therapy Hybrid Program in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She's authored and co-authored several book chapters and journal articles dealing with arthritis and orthotics. Among her, Dr. Beasley's several designations are being a 2017 honored professor at the Philadelphia Hand Meeting and a fellow of the American Occupational Therapy Association. She's also been the recipient of a 2018 Grand Valley State University Niemeyer Award for Excellence in Teaching. Dr. Beasley, welcome back.
Okay, hi, I'm here, and I'm going to start my video. And it's just really a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me back. It was really fun being with you last time, and we hope that we can cover some wonderful things about meal planning. We can go on to the next slide. I have osteoarthritis myself, as I'm not only a grandma and a mom and a wife and a professor at Grand Valley, but I also have osteoarthritis. And so I've found some of these hacks, as you have, Rebecca, been very helpful personally. So I hope that we can share some of these things. And there's one area that we really can't avoid, and that's food. We need to prepare food, you know. We can protect our joints, but it's really important to think of ways that we can protect our joints, especially because we have to eat.
Right. Healthy eating is a big part of taking care of ourselves, right?
Absolutely. So let's go on to the next slide. And we're going to start with meal planning. And we're going to cover 3 areas here, which will be organizing your kitchen, making your grocery list, and pre-planning and preparation days. So you can see these are where we'll get started. So let's move on to the next slide. So what you see here is, just move this. You really need to look at your kitchen and get it organized so that you're not doing a lot of stooping down or reaching way up, and which can be very hard on your joints. So putting items where they will be used, creating stations, is really very important. You're like, well, wouldn't it be better if I stretch once in a while? Well, sure, but you can get more done and work a little bit longer if you have your kitchen organized and have things where they belong. So you're there at the stove making some tomato sauce. You want to have those spices near the stove because you're going to be adding spices right there at the stovetop. Your dishes, if you can store them near the sink or the dishwasher, that can be very helpful. Glasses near the sink. Every day at my house, there's a glass that is a new glass. There's glasses everywhere. So if you can get them as close to the sink as possible, that's going to be really helpful for the number of steps that you have to travel. Hot pads. You don't need to go across the kitchen to get a hot pad when it's time to move something on that hot stove or in that hot oven. So keep those hot pads near the stove. Spatulas, large spoons near the cooktop, knives and cutting equipment near those chopping boards. So it's just a matter of thinking about what do I do here and what do I need to have nearby. So we can go on to the next slide. So sometimes you get a gift or an opportunity to make some major modifications to your kitchen, and it's not a bad idea to enlist some help to do that, because there are professionals that can help you. But here's one idea. So you know how difficult it can be sometimes to reach way up for items that are in high cupboards. So installing drop-down shelves here in high cabinets can be very, very helpful, and don't take as much energy. Also, things like lightweight cookware. This is a bowl stabilizer, this orange thing. You put the bowl on there and it's going to keep it stable so that you don't have to do that with your other hand.
Jeanine, I actually have
yes,
one of those.
you've
I have
got
one
one.
of those to show.
This
We
is
don't
great.
necessarily need to wait till the demo slide, but I do. It's called a stabilizer, very witty. And it does almost like it's non-slip material. So when you set it down on the counter, it doesn't move. So that's a cool little hack. That's what's in that picture right there, but it's
Uh-huh.
called a stabilizer. But
Stabilizer. How have you, oh, you're going to say, how have you
I
used,
actually have a
oh,
mixing bowls that have the non-slip on the bottom. And so, and it has a nice little way to grip it on the side. So that's what I use. But this thing is actually really cool. I tried it out. I'm like, yeah, it really doesn't move at all. So that's one way. That could be frustrating when you're trying to mix or do stuff and everything's moving around. So just wanted to show that while you were talking.
I love it. And Rebecca's got a whole bunch of stuff there. So she's going to
Yeah.
continue to interrupt me here, which is great, and show you these things. And we have to tell you that we don't get any money for any of these things. Okay, we're
Right.
not trying to sell you anything. It's just stuff that we found to be helpful. So I hope that you understand that we're coming at it from that perspective. So okay. So moving on to using a cart. Okay, so in the kitchen, you're moving items from point A to point B, carrying them. They may be hot, they may be cold, but if your kitchen's big enough to have a cart, it can really help you to move many items at once in the kitchen and it protect your joints with less effort. I'm a big cart believer, let me tell you. And also there's tools that can really help you, like jar openers and stand-up mixers, electric can openers, and scissors to make opening items and mixing items easier. Um, so often there's packages that are really hard to open, and having a good scissors can make all the difference to getting those. Also, have your knives sharpened on a regular basis. uh, for example, I have Cutco knives, and they sharpen them for free for your whole life. And again, I don't work for Cutco, but I have found them to be very sharp. And I believe, Rebecca, you have some knives that you really like as well.
Yeah, I do. We later on when we talk about serving food, I'll show an electric knife, but I know so many of you have questions. It does feel odd for me to pull out a knife, but I use a brand that's called Global. This is a Sudoku style knife, and this is actually my favorite, but it has a really fat handle that I like a lot because I don't have to have such a small, tight grip on my knives. And they're easy for me to handle, and they're lightweight, even though they're great, they're sharp. I don't even have to I keep them sharp, but they're so they cut so easily that I don't have to sharpen them as well because they are a more higher quality knife. However, it's easier to prep when you have knives that are sharp and quality. So all the handles, as you see, and they're a little bit different shape, but they are all a fatter grasp. So I don't know if you want to explain why the fatter grasp is important, Jeanine.
I was just going to, my goodness, just like you read my mind. So we've actually done research that shows the different diameters of handles and reduces the amount of pressure and force that you need to apply to do the cutting or the task that you're trying to do. And so you want to have a handle that's not so tiny that you have to press hard to do that. It distributes the pressure to have that larger handle that Rebecca was showing. So thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, okay, we can go on to the next slide, and this is uh, again prepping and cooking your stations. So um, if you can sit to work as much as possible, that can be very helpful. In my kitchen, I have a counter with bar stools, and I'm a big delegator. Okay, so I set everybody up with chopping boards and a vegetable, and we'll make it fun. And so get that cutting board, get that sharp knife, get the vegetables, get the things that you need. Oh, and the vegetables this time of year are just so good, aren't they? They're just
Yeah.
the tomatoes. Oh my! So don't get me started. But get everything in one spot. If you need to stand though, setting up using one of these wonderful pads to stand on can decrease the amount of pressure, especially at the balls of your feet and in your heels, because you have that amount of padding. I have a good friend with rheumatoid arthritis, and she just likes to stand on my pad in my kitchen, when she comes over.
Yeah.
And it really does decrease. It's called an anti-fatigue mat, and
Yeah.
it actually decreases fatigue. Do you have one? Oh,
I
yeah,
do
it looks like
actually. I have one for my office, and this it's so funny. Is that staged? This one actually is not staged. I
ah,
literally have this because I have a sit stand desk. This is an anti-fatigue mat.
nice.
So there are nice memory foam mats for your kitchen that are great too. And make sure you have one in front of the sink, in front of the stove, in front of where you prep. Because whenever you're standing, that's what bothers me with my feet a lot right now. But this I love for work because I'll alternate standing and sitting, and it has the little bumps to kind of like massage your
Ooh,
foot
ooh.
and then offset your weight too. Sometimes, you could take some pressure off your heels or pressures off your toes when you're standing too. And I kind of like march in place on it sometimes just to get some physical activity in because I sit in meetings all day. But that was actually suggested to me by a physical therapist once. I was doing a patient education course and I was telling them how hard it was for me to stand all day. And she was like, you should just be bringing an anti-fatigue mat with you wherever you go. And so for those times when you're prepping big meals like holidays coming up and stuff like that, I would take this downstairs in the kitchen and use it because it's a lot thicker and the stuff that you get for your kitchen that's out there everywhere.
Very
So,
good.
yep,
Nice sharing. Thanks for sharing. I love it. I
yeah,
love it. I think we covered most of these. The last
yep,
one though is putting a small garbage can, like a little, maybe a bowl, right on the counter as you work. You know how you got like you're cutting that away and there's the apple core
hmm
and you're cutting that away and that's the base of the celery and you know and so every time, if you're going to the garbage every single time with that, or to your compost pile or whatever, so having that small little trash or bowl right on the counter decreases the amount of steps you have to take, and also helps with cleanup. So I think we could go on to the next slide. Okay, so we're moving on now to hacks for your grocery list. And uh, don't you think that sometimes you have the best ideas when you're like doing something else? You're like, oh, I got to remember to get the butter, or I'm fresh out of parsley, or whatever it is. And so if you can, on a smartphone, you can dictate a list. There's several apps that do that, or just one that comes with the phone. And or you could, if you're around some family or friends, you can say, hey, write this down for me. This can be very helpful. uh, but also keeping a list of things right on the refrigerator that you need to get, so when you run out of the vanilla, you write it down. And encourage family and friends, or whoever is living at your house, to write that down when they use the last of that. um, I love, with COVID, I love how grocery delivery became cool.
right.
Have you been involved with grocery
Yeah.
delivery?
Well, I've actually used I'm in Colorado and we have Kroger's and they have what's called Click List, right? Um when I've had surgeries, I've utilized it because I'm the cook at home and I like to get the things that I like to get, but I get like it says keep a running list. There's staples that you always get that you have. So with these online shopping apps and different stores who have their own online shopping app, you can have your staple list. So just check off the things that, and even I know I have a Target app too. So
Oh,
like, do you want your usuals? And I can just say yes or no. And I've gone and you just have to drive up and pick up your groceries and they put it in the back of your car and it's amazing. I am picky about my produce, so sometimes it's tough. So I totally get that. But when I really needed it for surgery, one of my last surgeries that was pretty major, um, for my neck, I couldn't drive for like over 2 months, and that saved us, right? So being able to, COVID just highlighted it, like, hey, why are you going to the store? Like, save yourself some time, right? And also, it is an energy conservation hack, right? Going grocery shopping is exhausting. And so utilizing it when maybe you're having a big flare, or you're recovering from surgery, or you've got a bunch of things going on, it's a great way to go. There's delivery, you could do drive up for most places, or people can just bring it to you. So I definitely have used that. And I know a lot of people who dictate their list into their phone, or Alexa, and I shouldn't say that because my Alexa is going to start talking in a minute, but Alexa, add this to my list, or, hey, Google, add this to my grocery list. And so utilizing those things so you don't have to use your hands to write them is another way to save some, prevent some overuse of your joints, right? We use our hands and our fingers all day long. And so the most you can do with all of the digital tools we have today can really help you. So I think that that's great. And one hack that I like too is I shop by section of the grocery store too. So organize your list that way. The great thing about online shopping or using apps is that it's already usually organized in that manner. So it's produce, it's dairy, it's, the deli aisle or whatever. So things are already set up that way. So when you make your list, if you're writing it out or dictating it, just organize it by the aisles and sections. So when you do go shopping, if you're going in the store, you don't have to go back and forth. You're saving energy.
Great.
I think we covered everything on this one, right?
Right, and some on the next, actually. I think we're
Yeah,
ready to
we
go on to-
did.
So are
The
we
demo.
ready? I think we demoed the anti-fatigue.
Yep.
So we're set. Oh,
The chair and the stool is on there. I think if I keep, if you have a lot of people might have an island with a stool there, doing some of your prep work there. I don't really have enough room in here to have brought in another chair or stool because I have got a bunch of things behind me to show everybody. But that's just one thing to think about. Can you alternate your tasks for prepping and cooking by sitting and standing? And just take turns. So yeah, I think we covered that. And then we
love
can
it.
move on to the next section for actual grocery shopping.
Grocery shopping.
Yep.
Okay, so grocery shopping. We're going to be covering some of the challenges, which are pushing a cart, actually gripping groceries, reaching and stooping for groceries. Look at the stretch this girl is doing. My goodness. Lifting groceries, standing in line, and carrying groceries. So let's go to the next slide. And so, again, we already talked about hacks for grocery delivery, and that's getting groceries delivered. But most grocery stores have the motorized shopping carts, which I think are a ton of fun. My goodness, you can just go. You can just enjoy it. I don't really like the beep 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 when you back up, but I remember I had surgery on my knee, and I had to use that, and people were quite helpful to me. I enjoyed it much. So don't hesitate if you're going to the grocery store to use the electric cart. It can be very, very helpful. You might find that you just want to shop by a section of the store. Now, we have some very big stores here in Michigan, and some like superstores where they have groceries and hardware and all of that. And sometimes that can be really overwhelming. So if you think about, okay, I'm just going to go for groceries, or I'm just going to go for hardware, keep just going by section of store can make it a little less fatiguing. Uh, and you want to shop when your energy is the highest and when you're having the least amount of pain. So you might need to think about, when did I take my pain medication? Am I really stiff in the morning and I'm looser as the day progresses and I have a little more energy? Look at your individual pacing there. So there is as far as gripping groceries, though, sometimes wearing rubber gloves or silicone gloves, or like our garden gloves, can help you really grab a glass bottle or other slick packaging. Um, I have seen so many people have trouble uh, in the produce section. Okay. Oh, you want to show that first, Rebecca? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh, you've got a rubber glove there? Yes. You're muted, dear.
These are some isotoner type gloves that have just some grips on it so that you don't drop something, those glass jars and things that you pick up, but they're very thin, so they're not as hot. But like you said too, garden gloves are something that you could use too.
Mm-hmm. So how many of you have gone to get some lettuce and you get the bag to put the lettuce in and you cannot open it? No way, no way, no way. Okay. So what I found is if you take your fingers and touch the wet lettuce and then touch the bag, will open just like that. And I have watched people in the produce section of my grocery store struggle to open these bags. So a little bit of water will change that. You're laughing, Rebecca.
That's a great hack. And for me, I'm laughing because every time I'm in the produce section, that's when the sprinklers turn on. So no problem finding produce that might be wet for me because that always turns on when I'm standing there. But that's a great one. And it's true. Every time you go to the store, you see somebody struggling with that. And when your fingers are swollen and they hurt, or your thumb from your arthritis, that's really kind of so frustrating to have to do. So thanks for that hack.
Yeah. If you have splints, like wrist splints, if you're having a painful time, I'm a big believer. Actually, the research is really supportive of wrist splints for decreasing pain and giving you stability. You're like, oh, I don't want to get weak, but actually you'll be stronger with a stable wrist. And so you may want to think about a wrist brace or a wrist splint. And also easy to open packages. This is something that it's really important. We're always trying to get our manufacturers to have a little bit better, easy to open packages, which can be really helpful. So good. Did you have anything else with this one, Rebecca?
I think we have on the next screen, we can just keep going, and then I have a bunch of things to demo, I think.
Okay.
Yep, I do.
All righty. And is there any questions that we need to address?
That's one thing I was going to check on. I did answer some of your questions on the brand of knives in there. And somebody just gave a recommendation too of that stabilizer that we had earlier to keep, keep your bowl from moving all over the counter. So yeah, I think we can move on to hacks for reaching and stooping when you're in the grocery store. If you have my handy dandy reacher.
Very good. Love it.
And
now,
so
beautiful. I love that reacher. I have it myself, Again, we get no money for telling you this, but I love this reacher. And I'm also short. I'm only 5'2", so I am vertically challenged. I use it around the house, all over the place. So bringing that reacher, and you might say, oh, I'm going to get a really, really long one. And you have to remember the leverage with a reacher. If you get it long, it's going to be heavy to reach the items. So getting that perfect length is important. Not too long and not too short that it doesn't reach. So,
right.
And then, but sometimes getting assistance or bringing someone with you to grocery shop can be a social event.
Right. And I think that's the best hack. Bring help, right? Like, I mean, when I go grocery shopping, if it's especially like Costco or Sam's, if you're going to one of those stores, the big box stores, and you're getting a lot, especially when I'm not feeling well, I bring my son or my husband to help me push the cart because it gets heavy, and do all the carrying. And so I think that is an important thing to think about not just when you're feeling your best during the day to do your grocery shopping, but when can you bring some help? It's okay to ask for help. I know it's hard. I know a lot of us are very stubborn and independent, but conserve your energy for things, other things that you need to do to manage your arthritis, like physical activity, walking, going on a walk with your family and things like that. And so that's one of the things that I always like to impress upon people is save your energy for something that will really help you manage your arthritis pain, right?
Mhm.
Not the worrying about carrying groceries, and if I do go without help because I'm feeling okay, as soon as I pull in the driveway, hi, I'm home, go get the groceries. So it's never an issue in my house. Everybody's just used to it, right? And I've had this my son's whole life, so he knows that we help mommy, so it's all right.
Great.
I think the next thing about lifting groceries too, though, Jeanine, is important for us to talk about. Like a lot of times somebody will tell you, use your larger muscles and joints. Could you explain what that means?
Right. Okay. So let's say you're lifting an orange, okay, with your wrist muscles to get it out. And that's going to be a lot harder. That's a smaller joint than using your whole arm to lift that orange and get it into your cart. So, and also carrying items out here or away from your body, lifting something away from your body. If you can get close, I'm going to get real close here, get close to the item, and then you don't have to reach as far. It's it's better close to the body and using the bigger joints to do it. But there's like millions of little hacks and tricks to do that. It may be that you're pushing the cart, not with your, but with your wrist, but with your whole forearm, with your
Yep.
arms resting and pushing there, and then that distributes it through the arms. So, um, and then bending your knees instead of your back, and that's really important because if as you know people with back pain, if they lift with the back, they are going to cause pain in that low back area. So using the legs, a little plie, it's just like ballet, to get those lower items, which is really important. So did I explain it all right?
Yeah, that's great. We're going to have a slide coming up that shows uh carrying groceries. So it'll reinforce what you're talking about. So
Oh, I
thank
love it.
you.
Okay, we can go to the next slide, I think.
Yep, we can.
Okay, so grocery shopping, hacks for standing in line. Of course, if you can avoid standing in line, that's always the best way to go. Sometimes early in the morning or right after dinner. Sometimes you can actually ask the store, when is your least busy time? Or
Yeah.
sometimes there's apps on your phone that'll show the least busy time for a restaurant or for they'll also do it for a store. So that would be the time to go. Rebecca, do you use this folding tripod stool? Is that
No, I
no?
don't. But one thing that I do use that one of I when I do my Sam's Club trips, they have scan and go. I know some stores have it and some don't. Scan and go is the best invention ever. I just take my phone, I scan the item as I'm getting it and putting it in the cart, and I walk out the store. They just scan my little QR code and my receipt, and I don't have to put anything back on the belt. I don't have to, carry it an extra time. I'm just taking it off the shelf, then it goes in the cart, and then everybody that's at home carries it into the house. So I think Scan and Go is one of the best things ever invented. When I
Yay.
do go shopping, unless you're doing online shopping, that's the other best thing. So yeah, I don't do that. But what I do a lot is if I'm standing because I'm reading the label or something, I will put one foot on bottom, the bottom, what do you call that, bar of the cart, just to offset the weight off my hip and my back, and just to kind of alternate a little bit when you're standing, because I find it very difficult to shop at places like that, because when I'm on concrete for too long, my feet really start hurting, and then my low back starts hurting a lot. So I try to alternate, and if I need to take a break, I take a break.
Great. Yes, and that's something also that you should, while you're prepping food, to get one foot up a little bit, and
Yep.
that might be on a little on a little stool, a tiny stool, or opening up a cupboard door, and if there's a place you can put your foot. All of that is important. So I love that you're using the shopping cart to do that. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
great. Okay. So asking the if you have a bagger, so many stores don't have baggers anymore. We miss
I
our
know.
baggers, but if they could put similar items in the same bag, so like all the cold stuff in one bag, all the maybe the stuff that goes in the cupboard in another bag, that helps you when you get home to put things away. Um, and I see a lot of people, especially with rheumatoid arthritis, with ulnar deviation of the fingers. That means the fingers go over to the side. And if you're carrying a plastic bag in those hands, that's actually aggravating that ulnar deviation. And so I really encourage my patients, especially with that deformity, to use a paper bag carried close to their body, which is a lot less stress and pain on those hands. So asking for paper as opposed to plastic um, can be very helpful. And using that shopping cart to transport those groceries from the store to the car. And then a collapsible wagon or wheeled cart to transport them from the car to the house. So you have a collapsible wagon there? Is that what it?
Well, I have one, but I didn't put it together in here because it's huge. My office isn't a huge space, but it's one of those like wagons you see a lot of people use for to the beach or, for sports or to the park. We have one of those, but we can move to the demo slide, the
Okay.
next one.
Next slide.
I do have, so a couple things I wanted to show. I showed the gloves with grips. I showed your reacher, but reusable bags are great because the handle is longer. It's not as flimsy as the plastic bags. That's good for the environment, but you can carry it up by your shoulder. And that's better because, as Jeanine was saying, the closer you carry things to your body and use your shoulder joint is larger than your elbow, is larger than your wrist and your finger joints, right? So the closer you carry items to your body, you're distributing the weight of what you're carrying throughout your whole body and not just on those little joints. I have a grocery tote. So here in Colorado, we love our farmer markets. I know a lot of the cities or wherever you live, you might have a farmer's market that you go to. But I have this cool little rolling cart that has wheels. On the front, there's a little kickstand, so it stands on its own. And so when I go to the farmer's market to get my veggies, I have this with me because it's almost like a rolling luggage thing. So the handle adjusts. You could build it up better if you wanted to with some more foam, but it's pretty good size. So I'm not having to grip too tightly. And I push it forward versus dragging it because that's easier on me with my shoulders. And so it's great because I'm not carrying all that weight as I walk through the farmer's market, but this is something that you could do for the grocery store too. Some people, if they're walking distance to the store and you walk to the store, that's a great thing instead of having to carry. The other thing, we're gonna go to the next slide. Carrying your grocery bags. I know we're all guilty of this, right, Jeanine?
Oh.
How can I get all the groceries in one fell swoop and not have to go back out to the car again? So then here you are walking into the house with 3 bags on each hand, full of weight of groceries, right? Not a good idea, especially if you have arthritis in your hands and your wrists, and your fingers. Those are the smallest joints in your body. And think about the weight that you're carrying. You're putting all that force on the smallest joints in your body. Not a good idea. It's not going to help with your pain. So these pictures show you bad, better, best. So I just showed you how to hold it, a reusable bag over to your shoulder. So avoid using that tight grasp carrying any bags like that. It is so hard on your little joints in your fingers and your wrists. It is a little bit better to hold in your forearm and your elbow. That joint's a little bit bigger, but better up above the shoulder. Like I said, it distributes that weight. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Jeanine.
Yes. Well, I think so often we're like, I'm just going to muscle through it. It's going to hurt, but I don't care. I'm going to do it. it's not, you've got to think about your whole day. You've got to think, well, if I use these joint protection principles of carrying the items closer to my body and not so much in my hands, I'm going to be able to do more throughout the day and do more later. So I think it's really important to pace your day and to say, hey, I can not only do that, carry my groceries if I adapt the way I do it, but now I'm ready to do a little cooking as opposed to taking a nap. So, so there's that. I think we can go on to the next slide there.
Yep. I think we're on the next section for prepping food. We have a lot of toys to show for this one.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. So prepping food is, we're going to be covering unpacking, chopping, slicing, dicing, mixing, and stirring. It almost sounds like a stand-up comic routine. Oh, I'm aging myself. Okay, with Saturday Night Live. Well, let's move on to the next one, and we'll get right into prepping. So, prepping the food, you have some hacks, and if you can use electronic devices, it can be so helpful. We talked about this a little bit before. Electronic can openers, jar openers, and bottle openers are just really helpful. The amount of force and rotation in opening up a jar or a bottle is really hard. And the first time you open up a jar or a bottle is hard for almost anyone. So sometimes if you have somebody coming over and say, hey, can you open my jars for the first time? We'll put them in the fridge or whatever. And then you don't have that initial very, very difficult time to open the jars. Scissors are specialty tools like the nimble to open bags and plastic containers with one finger. Is this yeah. Okay.
This is one of the coolest things I've ever come across, and I didn't learn about it until.
I don't see you, Rebecca. I think your camera is.
Oh, wait, hang on. Here we go.
Okay.
Sorry. Oops, sorry. This is one of the coolest things ever. So I didn't learn about this until an Arthritis Foundation program that I helped do to teach kitchen hacks. They had sent me one of these. It's called a nimble, NIMBLE, just like on the side. And you literally just, and it'll open up the package. There's a little thing that cuts right here, and it fits right on your finger. And it slices things open easily. And of course, I didn't think to bring food up here with me. I should have brought some snacks so that I could show you how it works. But look it up. I'm sure there's a video when you find it. I think you can find it on something like Amazon. And to reiterate once again, we do not have official partnerships or paid partnerships with any of these products that we're talking about. These are just cool hacks that we have found through the Arthritis Foundation or Jeanine or I's personal things that we found that really kind of help. But you can cut paper and packaging with just one swipe of your finger, and it's really cool. We've shown these, I think, in our last one, but I love loop scissors. When my wrists and my fingers were really swollen, these were so much easier for me to use. I keep scissors in every room in the house. I keep scissors in the kitchen drawer because I don't bother trying to rip open anything. I just use scissors all the time. There's no need to put that extra stress on my joints when I know it's hard for me to do or to deal with the frustration. So I always just use this, use a pair of scissors. But the loop scissors, especially if you're having difficulty with grasp and your fingers and your wrists are swollen, very simple to use. So those are two things for opening. You mentioned electronic tools, so jar openers. So I'm going to go ahead and skip through some of these since we're talking. Skip to some of these. A jar opener. Okay, so this handy dandy guy. A lot of you have seen the OXO brand. Every tool in my kitchen is pretty much OXO because of that wide grasp that they have. This you can use to open jars and bottles. And the reason why this helps, Jeanine, can you explain why it's having that longer moment arm, having a longer thing to hold to open something? Could you explain the why behind that? That makes
well, would you like? I can get into the physics equation of the lever.
Not that.
Oh, okay.
Not that. detailed, but why that makes it easier.
Yes, because you're actually further away and able to put more force on than you would as you are very close to the item. And so it works very well to
Yep.
do that. So and protects your joints.
Yep. And there are different kinds, not just this one. There's other kinds that you can find. But the idea, like she said, is if you have an arm that gives you a little bit more leverage to open something, it makes it easier to open. The other thing is, of course, a can opener. And on a couple slides down, we'll have some pictures of some automatic can and jar openers. So we'll have pictures of those. Are we on chopping? Yes. So there's all kinds of choppers out there, mini choppers. I have this mini chopper. A lot of times blenders have the food processor or a chopper attachment to them. That's a great way to save your joints. And for those times when you're really not feeling great, sometimes just buy the things that are already sliced up. You know, a lot of the grocery stores, we're all in a hurry. So they've done a good job of trying to have things that they're ready to make things simple for us to use. So when in doubt of, you know, your ability to prep and cut or not having any help, just buy it pre-chopped or, you know, sliced up. And then I think I use shears actually too, kitchen shears. Sometimes that's easier than actually cutting a meat chicken. I think shears are easier. Another tool I love that I don't have the same version, but these choppers that are out there, you can kind of, sorry, there's a lot of pieces to it if it's loud. There's different settings to chop. So this is like a mandolin slicer, and you could do julienne, you can do different things like that. It's kind of like the one in the picture of the slide where you just take it and then you would slide it back and forth and it'll cut it for you. So you can use it for different cuts. There are so many different versions of this thing in here. And so whatever you cut falls into this little container. This is the best way to dice anything. I use this for potatoes and onions and garlic. And sometimes I've used it for like zucchini. I even have one of those, like, you know, how everybody wants to do noodles, zucchini noodles, a spiralizer. Sometimes those are great to use to just make that prep easier. I think that's a stand mixer is huge. We can move to the next slide, Rachel. A stand mixer is cool, but also if you have to mix things, there's these hand wand like immersion blenders to mix sauces and things like that. So you're not having to mix and mix and mix, that are great. There's also this thing that I never saw and knew existed. There's automatic stirrers. Have you seen these, Jeanine?
No, now that
So
I think
it's
we actually had a question about that.
It's
So
battery operated. You stick it in the pot or whatever you're mixing. Oh, see, you can't see because I'm sticking out. If you can't really tell, but it's on and it's kind of vibrating. But you stick it inside the pot and it actually works. Like when we did this cooking class and I used it, we were making gravy for turkey, and I was surprised how well it worked. I looked them up on Amazon, automatic stirrers, and there are several different options to choose from, but really cool thing. You can also just use like a regular hand mixer that you use sometimes for baking, you know, but there's also like, you know, people in your house. Hey, go stir that
Sure.
risotto because it needs constant stirring. Keep stirring for me. Another thing that we had, I showed the stabilizer. There are these cutting boards that have kind of spikes on them, but they're hard to store. So I don't necessarily love those things. They just take up space and they're pretty sharp, but the idea is that you can prop the vegetable or whatever it is, the meat that you're cutting, and put it onto those spikes, and then it'll keep it in place while you're trying to chop. The rocker knife is my favorite. So I told you I had a lot of toys.
We can probably go to the next slide that shows
Yeah.
the rocker knife.
Yep. Next slide, please. This is a rocker knife. Okay. When I was first diagnosed, a lovely coworker and his wife gave this to me. I was in my mid-20s and he's like, this might help you with chopping. Well, my wrists and my hands were so involved and so swollen, it was hard for me to do anything. And having this, because the way that you hold it with two hands made the job easier, but this is sharper than you think it would be. I have cut chicken, I have cut beef and some pork with this thing, and it chops vegetables, onions, meats. But what it does, and you might be able to explain it better than me, Jeanine, is it keeps my hand and my wrist in a neutral position when I'm cutting. So a lot of times, because I have rheumatoid arthritis, if I'm doing anything that moves my hand more towards my pinky, I'm really weak using my muscles that way. So this keeps my hand and my wrist in a neutral position, and it's easier to chop. And then you're standing normally doing it, so you can put more force into it, not just using your arms and your shoulder.
It's also not pushing your fingers into the ulnar deviation position.
Exactly.
Or the crooked position. It's keeping them straight. And
Right.
two hands is better than one. So it's
Exactly.
delightful on many levels.
And then there's also these. These are like what are they called? Mezzaluna knives. Such a fancy name. And we have two different versions of them, but you can use these. You see chefs use them on cooking shows and stuff too, right? Where they chop, chop, chop. But it has a fat grasp to them, which is great. And if you're really trying to just chop something up, it's kind of nice to use. So those are some tools that can help you. On your slide, you see Dyson. I showed you the loop scissors. Dyson, if you've heard me talk before in a webinar, is one of my most favorite things in the world. I didn't get introduced to it until later on in my diagnosis. I have this little piece of that Dyson in my kitchen, and I can open many things with it. I used to keep it in my car because I couldn't, especially when I was first introduced to it, I couldn't open the gas cap. This helped me open anything and everything. When you're out and about and you grab a drink and you can't open that bottle cap, it's great to have one in your car. But Dyson, and the spelling is there on your screen, is a product. They have specific, go on their website, they have specific products for opening bottles, opening jars. They even have these non-slip pads that you can put on your counter so things don't slide while you're trying to work in the kitchen, which I think are great. But this little, it's a non-slip placemat, but this is kind of shows you some of the products they have. Just one specific for bottles, one specific for jars. But like I said, if you're going to physical therapy or occupational therapy right now, I can guarantee you that they will have Dyson in their clinic. So just ask them to cut off a couple pieces for you. That's what my hand therapist did for me, and it changed my life. Not even kidding, changed my life. How frustrating it can be to not be able to open anything. So have them cut a couple pieces off for you, and it will make opening things much easier for you. I think, are we on? We got the can openers. So you have electric jar openers and can openers. They have come such a long way from when I was first diagnosed. I used to have this big, bulky jar opener. Now there's these things that just fit right over the lid. You can adjust the size. Same with those can openers. The one shown on the slide, you literally can put it on there and press the button and it opens your can. I think we can go, hang on, one more thing I'm going to show you. I know somebody posed a question about cutting like cheese, if I'm not wrong, because hard cheeses can be hard. And I know you're in Michigan, but you're close enough to Wisconsin and cheese. I love my cheese slicer thing. One, it has a fat grasp to it. And then just being able to hold, again, like we were talking about, my wrist and my fingers in neutral. I'm not putting my hands in a position of deformity for rheumatoid arthritis, which is moving things more toward my pinky, right? And so I can just use more force to push down too, to cut any hard cheeses. You can use it for other stuff too.
some people use a potato peeler too, like with a big
Yeah,
handle for hard cheeses.
like
Um,
this.
it's like we planned this. Very
We
good.
almost, I have two different
Okay.
versions of potato peelers for different things. Yeah. Yeah. And some people use that. And then, a pizza cutter isn't just for pizza. We use this for quesadillas and other things. And it makes it so easy to just kind of cut sandwiches with this thing, all kinds of stuff that you can do. And then my masher, not just for potatoes. So I have a masher that has such a fat grip. Um, but I use this not just for mashed potatoes, but if I'm making avocado, if I'm making guacamole. I have a friend who has rheumatoid arthritis, like I have a hard time breaking up ground beef when I'm cooking.
Mhm.
And so I said, use a masher, or as you're putting it in the pan, break it up instead of putting that whole block of beef in there and then trying to break it up, because once it starts getting cooking, it's a little bit harder to do. It's kind of easier to make it crumble when it's still coming out of the package, right? Okay, I think we can move on. I think I've shown all of my toys.
We have a
So
lovely
move
video
on to the
coming up.
next. Yep, we do. So let's go to the next slide. This just kind of shows you how opening a bottle is so hard. I know that those of you watching get that. But how dice them, first of all, is going to make a difference, and how not using your fingertips is better. You can actually open things with the palm of your hand when you have a piece of Dyson on it. So I think if we can click on that little video and show a little demo, it'd be great. You just take it, put it on the cap, press down. And that was a brand new bottle that hadn't been opened. So I'm telling you, this is a lifesaver. Dyson.
Yeah, the
All
amount
right.
of, if you look at the first slide, the bad slide, the
Mhm.
amount of pressure at the base of the thumb is like 12 times greater. So if you're pressing really hard, it's 12 times dislocating forces right there at the base of that joint, and it can cause a lot of damage. So you want to avoid, both with osteoarthritis and with rheumatoid arthritis, that hard, heavy pinch is not helpful at all. so,
Right.
I love this video. So
All right, let's move on to the next section.
I think we're cooking. We're
I think
cooking.
we're cooking.
Yeah. And we're going to be doing some lifting, twisting, pulling, and stirring. Sounds like a workout, doesn't it? A little bit?
Yeah, it kind of is. Cooking is really, if you think about it.
Oh, okay. So, if possible, you know, you can use some smaller countertop items like a convection toaster, electric griddle, microwave, slow cooker. I am a big Instapot user.
Me too.
Oh my goodness, it has changed my life. And the thing about the Instapot is it can be a slow cooker, it can be a sauteer, it can be all those things, and you don't have to keep washing everything.
Right. You can
So
saute in the meat that you're supposed to saute first before you slow cook it right in there. And so if you haven't got one, put it on your Christmas list or your birthday list. But I like, to me, slow cooker move over Instapot has taken over
that's a
because
poem. That's a
it
poem.
it is a poem. I just made it up, but you just need that one appliance, right? And now there's the Instapot version with like the air fryer or whatever. And there's so many different brands, not just Instapot. Again, we're not paid by Instapot,
Nope.
but talk about convenience. Even if you are using just a slow cooker, throw everything in the cooker and you don't have to like really touch it again, right? So that's a great way to save energy when it comes to cooking, not just, ease of use, but taking up your time, right? So
Right.
yeah, and the Instapot, you can also make rice, you can steam vegetables. I know somebody who makes oh my gosh, what is it? Like their quinoa and stuff, and make a big bulk of it for the week and in there. But those are great ways to make things easier because it's right at your countertop level too.
And there's many places in the United States that are having a lot of heat, and
Mhm.
this, you don't have to heat up your whole with your whole oven, you just have this small Instapot that's warming up for your dinner too. So, and it's easy, it's all on the countertop. It's not reaching high, reaching low. So, and putting pre-cut vegetables in there can be very helpful. I know people that put frozen chicken breasts in this puppy and turn it on, and,
Yeah.
and it cooks them. So
That's how I cook my ribs in an Instapot. That's
very
amazing.
Cool.
Yep.
Very cool. Yes. All righty. We can go on. I think I think
Next
we
slide.
Okay. So using, as far as lifting heavy pots and pans, we did have some questions about this, and using two hands and large joints to lift them. I think that sometimes there are like little trivets that you can use and put felt stickers on them, and then that will slide on your kitchen counter. There are some with wheels too, I've seen, but you don't want to lift those heavy pots from point A to point B. Um, I think that one of the nicest things, if you can, if you're doing any remodeling, is a pot filler, which is right over the stove. So you've got your pot is empty, you put it on the stove, you fill it there at the stove, and then add your items. And so it's also, I think it's good to, sometimes you can serve right from the stove. I've served right from the stove.
Oh, yeah.
Have some people over and say, okay, here's my buffet line, which includes the stove. So I'm not going to have to move that pot until it's a little bit more empty. And good quality oven mitts, good silicone, and using tongs, things that have a wider grip. And I have become, this says lining pans with foil paper for easy cleanup. I have become a parchment paper queen. So
Yep.
let's say I'm making bacon.
Mm-hmm.
What a mess, isn't it? To make bacon, clean up after bacon. Well, you take parchment paper and put it on a cookie sheet. Put the bacon on the cookie sheet with on top of the parchment paper. Put it in the oven. Take it out, and then you throw away the parchment paper. Don't throw away the bacon, okay? But
oh no, bacon makes everything better. Yeah. No, that's a great hack. And they have some silicone kind of lined ones too. So I have that when I use for baking like cookies and stuff. And it makes cleanup. I mean, it's a whole other ball game. So yeah, I've never even thought about using parchment paper for my bacon. That's a good one though. I like
yeah.
that one.
Well, I go to Costco and they sell it finally. They didn't have it for a long time, and now they do in these big rolls. So I've got enough parchment paper to last me my entire lifetime, I think.
Probably. I think we can move to the next slide.
Okay, so using wrist blades. Oh, this tool here that is being shown was a question actually for knobs on a stove, and what it is I think that Rebecca is searching for it.
I don't have that one. No, I thought I
Okay.
did, but I don't have that one.
Okay,
Sorry.
so it's got these little red little pegs, and it accommodates whatever size and shape the wash machine knob is, or the stove knob is, or whatever. And so it gives you leverage to turn that. So it's very, very helpful.
Very handy tool.
Very, very handle.
Oh, I showed the stirrer already. So
Yep.
automated stirrer, that was this thing. And then
What
I
about-
showed the immersion blender as well.
Yes. And then also, if you can use a bigger handle, they're called wrist blades on your faucet. They're longer handles. Then you don't have to use as much force to turn your water on and off. But now they actually have touch free where you just have to tap it and turn the water on and off too. So there's a lot of new things in plumbing that can really make your life a lot easier. Have you had any experience with those, Rebecca?
Yeah, I had a family friend who had the automatic faucet, and I kept trying to turn it on, I just can't, since I'm not used to it, but I think it's great. It's a great way to do it. And then instead of like grabbing whatever you have to open it, I just use my whole forearm if it,
Yep.
because ours
Yep.
is just a flip, you can easily just use your forearm instead of using my fingers to grasp. So that's another hack. I think we can move on to actually the next section for serving the meal. And then we have cleanup and we're going to be wrapping up. I want to check in on questions though. So if you want to get started, I'll look at some questions.
All righty. Yeah. So we are going to be carrying and cutting and carving and cleaning. So let's go to the next slide. First of all, getting help. If you have others, it's only fair that others help with the cleanup. And I'm a big believer in soaking dishes right away. Or even overnight, especially for some of those. But sometimes parchment paper can help you that you won't have to soak those dishes as much, or foil. But parchment paper doesn't rip as easily. Some dishwasher manufacturers say you do not need to rinse dishes. You can put them right in the dishwasher. That's hard for a lot of people, but it's what the dishwasher manufacturers are recommending. You can put an oven mitt or hand mitt, not an oven mitt, I'm sorry, a hand mitt, like a soapy, spongy mitt on your hand. And that's a little easier than trying to hang on to a little scrubby. And there's also suction cups that you can put with a brush attached right inside your sink, which can help you to wash the inside of glasses very easily. You want a dish brushes with large grasp or a palm grasp, and don't take the time to dry the dishes unless you feel really strongly about it. There are some individuals that feel strongly about it, but let's use the air or use the dishwasher as much as we can. So did you find any questions
there is a question about a countertop microwave that's easiest to open. The push button open style is too hard on my thumbs. Hard to find countertop microwaves with handles. So what hacks do you have for that? And I agree, if you have arthritis in your thumb, don't use your thumb. But do you have any suggestions for that?
No, I think if you can use a tool to push that button instead of your thumb, the thumb is really hard. So you could take a large tool, maybe like a T-shaped tool and there it is. Dun, 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 dun.
What is it? I honest to God don't remember what this is called, but my hand therapist gave it to me. And so when people have a hard time pushing buttons, like I think she might have actually concocted this.
I think she did. I have not.
You're not going to necessarily, but if you're a DIYer, you can get the idea. This is a fatter dowel so that you don't have to grasp as hard. And it has, I think she just created a little hole, and it has like a rubber stopper at the end. But it goes back to the same thing we've said multiple times of neutral position, but also giving you the leverage, and you can push the button that way, whatever it is that you're having to push. So that's what she had given it to me. She retired actually and gave me some of her tools so to demo. And so this is one of those things that when you said that, I was trying to think of an option for you. But this is what I happen to have on my desk drawer.
It was perfect. Those items are available. Like, you just go to a hardware store and you can get a big dowel, a small dowel, and a little rubber stopper. And sometimes at some of the hardware stores, the bigger ones, they'll actually drill the hole for you. You can get some wood glue and put it all together, and you have yourself an elevator pushing button and a microwave door opening pushing button, and buttons are everywhere.
You know what? You just made me think of that. There's a gadget I've seen at like Target with COVID, not wanting to touch stuff.
Yes,
it was like it had a funny name, like to avoid germs or something, but I've seen it. Look for it. It's like at the end of the aisles, like hanging on a thing, but it's like the same concept. So search around, or you can go to a hardware store and try to figure out if you can jimmy up one of these little things. But what a cool thing. And I don't know why I'm hiding in my drawer. I should actually be using it. So I think we've covered everything here.
Yep, and we
So
have
let's move on.
I think we have our one of our last slides here.
Yep.
So. Using
Serving.
lightweight dishes. I do believe you have. I think you showed the electric knife already. Is that right or no?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay.
But we have lightweight dishes.
Yay.
I do have lightweight dishes. I switched to my dishware. There is that brand called Corel.
I love Corel. You can.
Yep. Very lightweight. I dropped this and it didn't break. The bowl. Electric knives, especially if you're carving turkey or a big roast, are great. There are many brands out there, but again, it has a large handle, so you don't have to grip tight, and it does the work for you. So electric knives, I don't really see people use them that much today, but it is a thing, right?
They were really big, decades ago, and I think they need to make a comeback. Let's start a movement now for electric everybody.
Fancier ones, right? Or something cool. Another thing that's cool, so you don't have to deal and wrestle with cling wrap or saran wrap, which is always a pain. This is also great for the environment. These are these covers. They are universal fit silicone food storage covers, and we have them in multiple sizes. Rolling carts in your kitchen. I have one in my kitchen, didn't bring it upstairs, but you could get those at like IKEA or any store that, are cheap and just have it so that you can move things back and forth from your dining room to your kitchen if you need to. But again, as I always say, if you are not alone and you have somebody in the house, ask for help, right? To transfer those items. I think we've covered everything, right?
Yes. Do we have any outstanding questions?
Let me double check the Q&A here. I think, let's see if there's any questions we didn't get to. Yeah, this presentation will be posted in its entirety on our website at arthritis.org/webinars. You can find this one, will probably be posted in the next week, and you can find any of our past webinars on there. And also upcoming ones that are coming. We do have one coming up specific to arthritis and veterans who have veterans in arthritis in the military, active personnel. 1 in 3 people with who are in the military or are veterans have arthritis. We also have one on joint protection specifically, not about the kitchen though, but other types of joint protection that's coming up later. I do think that we have some final slides, don't we, with information on upcoming events to show as well. We are kind of out of time. Somebody is suggesting to use a solid spoon or a fine mesh skimmer to remove items from large pots. Such as pasta or potatoes instead of picking the pot up to dump into strainer. Yes, 100%. I do that too.
Rebecca, there was one question about cake decorating. Can I do that one? Very, very.
Oh yeah, please do that.
Okay, so cake decorating.
All our bakers.
It's really hard because you're pushing on a bag really hard with your thumb, which causes pain right here. And so here's your bag full of frosting, you see, and just using 2 little lids from like margarine or whatever, and use those instead to distribute the pressure can be helpful. So there you go. Okay, now we're running out of time.
Just note, you can always email us if you have questions. Somebody did say you mentioned wrist splints. Did you mean the kind for carpal tunnel? Similarly.
Yes, you can look at those. Just be sure that they hold you in a neutral position and not in a position of flexion or extension, and are comfortable and don't cause pain. So.
Yeah, I would recommend, that you actually ask your doctor for a referral to a hand therapist. Hand therapists can be either OTs or occupational therapists or physical therapists, but get one that's fitted specific to you. They have access to some that can fit better than over-the-counter kind, and they can teach you some of these things that we're talking about. And it's specific to you and your needs. So somebody asked about antique doorknobs, which is very different from kitchen, but I'm going to answer your question because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. and I don't have a doorknob in here, so sorry. I'm assuming you're talking about one of those old little hand knobs.
They're
So
so pretty. They're so pretty.
they are, but they hurt. And I lived in a house that was built in 1925. So I had, when I was first diagnosed, I had those kind of doorknobs, and I couldn't get into my house. So the hack that you do, instead of approaching your doorknob like you normally do this way to turn it, move your body position to turn sideways and open it this way. Okay. So what that's doing is, instead of moving your position, your hand and your wrist toward the way it might hurt for moving toward your pinky, as we say, avoiding ulnar deviation, because that's the ulna side, pinky side, avoid using and turning things, anything, knob, shower, toward your pinky. When you do it this way and you move your body and you're doing it this way, you're using what's called flexion and extension. So you're going back and forth and using more of your wrist versus tiny parts of it, right? And if it's your thumb that's hurting, same thing. You're using more of your palm actually to move that. And so it makes it easier to open. So try it. Everyone try that. Apply it not to just your doorknob, but apply it to your shower, your faucets, anything that you have to open normally this way that gives you difficulty. Move your body.
Yeah, and if you
Hopefully that helps.
If you can't replace them, also putting rubber bands on that. It's not as pretty, but a lot of like those broccoli rubber bands, have somebody else do it for you, can help get a little bit more friction on a slippery doorknob.
Yeah, and they have doorknob extensions that you can find online too, that would actually kind of create a lever for you that you can open and close it. So hopefully that helps. I know not related to cooking, but that's something that I know a lot of people struggle with. One last thing, what is the best drinking cup with handle to purchase with osteoarthritis hands and fingers?
Well, I think in a perfect world, it would be lightweight, and it would be, sometimes if you can use two hands to do it, there's a little less force and pressure to do that. You don't want anything that you're going to have to do a lot of pressure. A little bit narrower can be helpful. Too wide can be painful. Do you want to show the one that you have there?
This is a water bottle I have. It's narrower, but I like it because it's very lightweight. This is a thermos I use. You could do hot or cold, but this keeps it super hot. Again, you're not holding a small handle, so avoid holding the handle of anything, because that just puts more force on those little fingers and your wrists, and moves your hand downward towards your pinky, which you want to avoid, especially if you have rheumatoid arthritis. And so carrying hot coffee, so I always use these type of cups because I can do it with two hands, or I can support it underneath to hold it.
We're twins. We are twins.
Oh my gosh, we have the same one. That's hysterical. So holding it this way and then supporting underneath distributes the weight between both of your fingers and your hands and wrists versus using one. So that's always better if you can do that. But lightweight, and I like plastic because I drop things. But when it's my coffee, because I like that, I like the stainless steel stuff that keeps it warm but doesn't burn my hand. Hopefully that helps answer your questions. All right, I think we've done enough show and tell. We are out of time. Thank you for those who have stayed a little bit over. Thank you, Jeanine, once again for your expertise and joining in this conversation. We're going to make sure that if you get an email from us, provide some feedback on that post survey. We'd love to hear from you, and hopefully we had some hacks for your kitchen and cooking and grocery shopping that can help you do all of that with a little less pain. So I think that this slide just shows you a little bit about what we have coming up. I mentioned the webinars that we have coming up. Arthritis in the military, and then movement and mobility, protecting joints and preventing injury. The Live Yes with Arthritis podcast, September is Pain Awareness Month. And so we're focusing in on understanding the different types of pain. In part 1 and part 2, we're going to talk about some of the solutions in managing those different types of pain. We have several new support groups, new virtual connect groups. So they're national connect groups. You can connect online with other people like you, catered to various types of communities. So visit the website shown there, and you can see there's a bunch of new ones starting this month and next month. Get connected to other people. I think it's so important. Our helpline is always available to help you, whether it's online or you want to call one of our staff to help you answer some questions you might be having or resources that you're looking for. And then I don't want to forget our app called Vim. Download that from the App Store, anywhere, whatever store that you have for your apps. You can look up more information on our website about it at arthritis.org/Vim. Thank you again, Jeanine, for joining me tonight, lending your expertise. I hope we helped you guys out as much as we could. But again, questions on actual eating and healthy eating and anti-inflammatory diets, we have so many resources between our website, our webinars in the past we've done, and the podcast. So check those resources out. We even have some ebooks on our website as well. So hopefully this helps you to eat healthier and cook and prep without less pain. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.
Bye. Thank you.